Now sit down, son, and I'll tell you who your father really is. Travel bags are on the doorstep. The decision was made a long time ago. Yes, Oleg is leaving his hometown and going to Moscow. The mother agrees that it is necessary to go, that her son has no prospects in his hometown, there are few jobs here, and therefore trying to look for a job here with a decent salary is the height of naivety. Such rare luck fell only to Oleg's younger brother, and that's why her eldest son, who received a higher education, served a year in the army, goes to look for his place in the sun, in the capital, where the best minds and talents have flocked from all over the country at all times. And yet, realizing all this, and even much more, the mother's heart shrinks with longing and anxiety before separation. "Won't you change your mind, son?" she asks. "Well, what are you, Mom?" The son answers. "Everything has been decided long ago. Oleg is showing off, and his heart is also restless. Who knows how Moscow, which does not believe in tears, will meet him? All sorts of stories are told about how cruel she can be to visitors, to those who have come. From the salary there is a scam, and with housing, and people disappear irrevocably. Oleg heard about it from his friends who went there to work. However, his friend Vlad took care of Oleg, gave him the address of his friend in Moscow. Just what kind of friend is this? Who knows? And he does not have to burden himself with worries about a friend, some friend of his." However, these anxious thoughts did not affect Oleg's decision to storm the capital in any way. "Oleska, my son," suddenly said the mother, "sit down. What I'm going to tell you now, it's better to listen sitting down so as not to fall." They sat down in a chair. The mother moved closer. "Oleg, tomorrow morning you will be in Moscow. When you get out of the car, do not rush to leave. A man in his late 60s will meet you there, tall, blue-eyed. This is my very old friend, Viktor Anatolyevich Kuznetsov. You're staying with him for the time being. He suggested it himself. I called him recently, and we agreed on everything. He lives alone in a huge apartment, almost in the center, occupies a solid post, is provided for. He was happy to take care of you. He will introduce you to Moscow, help you find a job. But this is absolutely some kind of fantasy, Mom." Oleg raised his eyebrows in surprise. "Take care, and even with joy. Why did I surrender to him? Now hold on tight, son. Because you're his only son." Yes, Oleg really had to learn about it sitting down. Until now, he considered another man, who had not been in the world for 5 years, to be his father. Yes, his father was an alcoholic, but he brought a lot of troubles to his family, and his mother not only raised two sons practically alone, but also her husband was a heavy burden for her all the last years of his life. Only the sons loved their father and pitied him the way he was. He could not stand the trials of the holy 90s, could not survive his uselessness to the country, so he treated his heartache with a well-known proven medicine that inevitably leads nowhere. The mother coped with the trials that fell to her lot. She raised good sons, and when Oleg planned to leave, she found the cherished phone number and called the person she had parted with 25 years ago in Moscow. Both of them couldn't even remember what they had quarreled about. "Only we haven't met since." She immediately, to spite him, got married, and this man's affairs in Moscow went uphill. Everything was going as well as possible in his career, but it was bad in his family. The first wife turned out to be very ill, and because of this they had no children. He buried her 8 years ago. Of course, men like him don't stay alone for a long time, and that's where he made a mistake. So much so that he was surprised at his own stupidity later, married a 20-year-old beauty to such a fool, that she couldn't believe the lawyers later that when she divorced, not that half of her husband's property wouldn't it is due, and in general there is nothing belonging to her there, except fur coats and shoes. Kuznetsov swore to marry after that. But the fact that he has no children, he grieved very much. I was very sorry that there was no one to transfer my possessions and experience to. I regretted that there was no native person to whom I could trust in everything. And it's not that Viktor Anatolyevich was worried about a glass of water in his old age. No, he would have enough money to live out the rest of his days in the best boarding house. He lacked a soulmate. This mother called only to have Kuznetsov look after her son a little at first, and when she heard his story, somehow by itself, without hesitation, she revealed her terrible secret to Victor. "You have a son." Why didn't she tell him right away? But she realized that his child was being carried After she married Volodya, Oleg was born later than expected, and was not large, passed for a premature baby for several weeks. So they considered him Volodya's son. And then they had a second son with Volodya. I didn't want to bother you and your wife, they say, because you also got married quickly. From what he heard, Victor's breath stopped. He was silent for a long time. She realized that he was crying. Oleg left, and the mother lay and remembered the conversation with the man she had loved all her life. Victor told her that, having lived all his life as an atheist, he suddenly began to go to church. The soul called. Suddenly he stood in front of the icon of Saint Nicholas the Wonder Worker and began to pray that the most revered Russian saint would take care of him about giving Victor a son. He understood that it was stupid. Where would he come from, son? If only to marry a young and clever woman again, so that she would then count the days until his death. And 2 weeks later, suddenly this call. It's like I've grown wings behind my back, Kuznetsov said into the phone. I know now what I live for. I'll do everything I can for him, make up for everything I didn't finish. How amazing that Oleg looks like Victor. Tall, blue-eyed, fair-haired. But she and the late Volodya were both swarthy, dark-haired and brown-eyed, her mother thought. She got up and went to her husband's photo. She stroked her and whispered, "Forgive me, Volodya, you know the truth. Of course, Oleg is your son. It's just that it will be better for both of them, both Oleg and Victor. And then, Victor needs Oleg much more now than our son needs him.